Hi, I'm Andy Clark. I'm one of the consulting authors on the Singapore math program called Math in Focus. I'd like to take a few minutes of your time to tell you a little bit about how we teach second and third grade students to solve word problems. You may remember, as I do, dreading such word problems, but I think you'll be pleasantly surprised how much easier they are for your children because they're being taught a way to draw a very simple picture that helps them visualize or see what's being asked in the word problem. Word problems have always been challenging for students. Even some students who are good at calculating often have trouble with word problems. But after all, we want students who can use their arithmetic to solve problems, even complex problems. So how do they do that? They need a way into the problem. They need an entry point, a way to approach the problem. And that's what we teach when we teach them bar modeling. We teach them a very simple visual tool for representing a word problem. We have the students draw rectangular bars, rectangles because they're easy to draw and they're easy to divide. And we use these bars in second and third grade to do addition and subtraction, in third and fourth, multiplication and division, fourth and fifth to do fractions and ratios, and even solve algebra problems in middle school. Now, I want to assure you this isn't some sort of new math or magic gimmick or something like that. It's just really a powerful tool for helping students visualize math problems so they understand what's being asked of them and then how to solve them. Let me show you how we would teach this in a typical second grade classroom. The teacher would pose the problem in the following way. She'd say, I have 10 pennies and you have 12 pennies. How many pennies do we have in all? Now, the students can solve this without any bar models, but she's trying to show them how to represent it with these models. So she would say, well, let's see, if unifix cubes, how would you show it? And the child would count out 10, and then they would count out 12, and the teacher would say, how many altogether? And the students would say, well, we just put these together. And the teacher would say, well, that's very good, but that's a lot of work counting all those. What if I took these two strips of paper, and which one would represent the 10? And yes, the shorter one, and which one represents the 12? Yes, the longer one. And what am I being asked? How many there are in all? What would I do? I would put them together, right? And then she'd say, well, I'm going to show you even an easier way. I'm going to draw a picture of this, and a picture that I can use to solve any kind of problem. And so she'd say, here's, I draw this rectangle for the 10 pennies, this rectangle for the 12 pennies, and I would put a question mark where the question is. What's the question? How many do I have in all? And she would put that question mark. And then she would have this picture then of the problem. And you're saying, well, that's too easy. What do I need a picture for? Well, the problems get harder pretty fast, right? So the next problem might be something like this. Jenny has 87 marbles, and her brother gives her 78 more. How many marbles does she have now? Well, again, the student draws the picture, the rectangle for 87, the rectangle for 78, and then the question mark for what? How many in all? So again, you're saying, well, I've kind of gotten this down. Why do I need it? Because then I'm going to give them the next question, which says, Maria has 401 trading cards, and she gives 212 to her brother. How many does she have now? Notice the same word now. There isn't a clue word that tells you whether to add or subtract. And your students would ordinarily say, well, what operation do I do? Or what do I do? And what the teacher is going to say is draw the picture. How many altogether? 401. 401. How many does she give her brother? 212. Where's the question mark go? In the other part. What's this part? I know how many I have altogether. I know how many are in this part. I'm looking for this part here. Okay? Once the students get good at this kind of problem, then they're given another kind of addition and subtraction problem. This kind of problem says, what if Sue has 5 and Hans has 15 more? Now we have a different kind of problem. Here's Sue, right? And here's Hans. Why is Hans longer? Because he has more. So it's a different kind of problem. It's a comparison problem. But again, I can draw my picture. It's pretty simple, really. What am I going to do? Rectangle for Sue, label it Sue, label it 5, and Hans's rectangle is longer. And how much longer? 15 longer. What do we know about this then? This is 5, the same as Sue, and 15 more. And Hans, the question mark, goes here. Notice the question mark helps the students see what the question is asking. And again, I start with simple numbers, but by third grade, students are doing problems like this. The third graders collected 487 cans for the food drive. The second graders collected 175 less. How many did they collect? 487 cans for the food drive, and they draw the 487, right? And then they say the second graders collect 175 less Okay, so do I draw it longer or shorter? Shorter, how did you know? Very good. Do I know how many there are? No, I don't. It's a question mark, but what do I know? 175 less. So it's 175 less than 487. You still have to do arithmetic, but now I know what to do, whether to add or subtract. That's why we draw these problems. So how can you help your child? Well, first of all, when they come home, this is the kind of homework they come home with, they'll have a problem, right? And the problem may say, have a picture of a bar, and you'll say, I recognize those from the video I watched. You'll understand that these are just simple ways for the student to draw a picture to represent the situation. Sometimes they'll come home with problems like this one, which says Ms. Jackson drove 400 and so many miles in Monday and so many miles the second day. Draw a bar model to represent the problem, and you'll be able to help your child draw that picture now. Okay? How else can you help? Well, you can do the same thing we did here. Just play games. Make up word problems. Cut out 2 strips of paper, a longer one and a shorter one, and then have your child hold the paper and give them a problem. Maybe I made 30 cookies on Monday and 15 cookies on Tuesday. How many did I make in all? And your child would put the 2 of them together. Or you may say, I made 30 on Monday and 15 less on Tuesday. How many did I make on Tuesday? And your child then would say, instead of this, part, whole, they would be comparing the 2. And make them funny and have fun with the numbers. Start with simple numbers and get increasingly more complicated. But again, encourage your child to make up her own or his own word problems, and you make up your funny problems for them. Make them realize that math is something that's fun, that word problems isn't something that's scary. In conclusion, what I'm hoping is that when your child's given a word problem to do, instead of groaning, as we used to hear in the past, your child will pick up a pen or a pencil and say, let me draw a picture to represent it. Thanks very much for listening.